Well, I think what we can see is really a multi-track world, in the sense that some parts of the world, particularly in East Asia and also in Southeast Asia, are seeing quite very low fertility rates, record low fertility rates, very, very rapid population aging and moving into population decline. And even in places where you wouldn't necessarily think that would be the case, like in Thailand or Vietnam, even some states in India have got lower fertility rates than in Japan. Whereas then we go to other parts of the world, and of course we're seeing extremely rapid population growth, very, very high fertility rates in those parts of the world, and then some other places where are kind of in between, and we're not really sure which direction they're going to go into. So we're really dealing with a multi-pillar world at the moment.
Yeah. If we look at India, that is the standout. It's going to shift to become the most populous nation. What's critical that it gets right in terms of that population growth?
So I think the most important thing is in India, for me, is about balance. Because, of course, India is a very, very heterogeneous country, perhaps much more so than China, for example, the other population billionaire. And population growth in India is extremely uneven between different states. Obviously, tackling inequality is going to be an issue. And one of the big kind of hot topics at the moment is, of course, the different fertility rates, or the perception of different fertility rates between different religious groups. Now, actually, those gaps are not as big as many people like to express, and many people like to say, but they are being weaponized, I think, as a political tool. So it's very important that kind of narrative around different fertility rates in India is toned down. But then finally, of course, what India has to do is realize that it's not just about the population size, not about the structure. It will be about infrastructure, about governance. It will be around productivity. It will be around maximizing the education that that people have, bringing up gender equality. This will be how India will maximize its arguably slightly more favourable demographic situation.
Yeah, and on many of those points that you raised, India does kind of lag behind, particularly gender equality. China, of course, its population has peaked. Some believe it's even over-reporting the size of its population at the moment. Has it put in place the policies that are dealing with the fact that women don't want to have the multiple children now that they've relaxed the one-child policy?
So there's been a lot of effort in the last year or so to develop more elaborate family policy systems to support women in their aspirations to have more children, whether it's in terms of childcare and kindergarten, maternity leave, tax rebates and things like that. Whether or not that works remains to be seen in terms of increasing fertility rates, because, of course, there's still a lot of reasons beyond that why the fertility rates are so low. On the other hand, they're also doing, China is putting in a lot of policy to deal with the consequences of population aging, in terms of reforming the pension system, in terms of changing the retirement age, of reducing poverty, improving healthy aging. So there's a lot of things going on at the moment, and I think that they're relatively well placed to be able to tackle some of these main issues.
Yeah, because so many people, of course, link a reduction, well, an increase in wealth, for example, and then greater urbanisation with a drop in population. But part of that too is a greater carbon footprint, which is something that the planet we still haven't come to grips with.
That's right. So there is that kind of trade-off that you have, that you can say that in places in the world where fertility rates are very high at the moment, one of the most effective ways of bringing those fertility rates down, as you say, is through what we see historically would be through industrialization and urbanization. But if it's done in the same way that we have industrialized and urbanized in the past, this is not necessarily this will be a zero net sum game, right? Because, as you say, the carbon footprint will increase. So therefore, what we need to do is change our paradigm. Is to say, well, yes, we can have clean energy, we can have clean growth, we can urbanize better. It's not just slum growth and inefficient cities and the relocation of the rural poor to cities. We actually have a new chapter, I suppose, in terms of how people are living their lives.
Yeah. Well, you know, we've hit that milestone. The population, global population will continue to grow, but then there's diminishing babies being born. Does it have to be a problem? I guess we've relied so much on population growth for economic growth.
So it doesn't need to be a problem. And in fact, many economists have actually argued, well, actually some economists, many economists argue that it is a problem, but some economists have said that actually fertility rates which are below 2, below what we call the replacement rate, relatively slow rates of population growth can actually be quite good if we look at GDP per capita, so economic growth as it pertains to individual well-being, rather than just a kind of abstract notion of the growth of the economy, which we don't really necessarily feel in a day-to-day way. But in order for that to happen, productivity needs to increase. People have to have that. We need to have better jobs. The economy has got to be growing in order to offset that population stagnation or decline.
Really interesting stuff. Stuart, great to talk. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.